everyone. Welcome to the Political Insider. I'm Brett Smith, your humble host. Joining me today is a good friend and a special guest. Colonel John Mills is a national security professional with service in 5 eras: Cold War, Peace Dividend, War on Terror, World in Chaos, and now Great Power Showdown and the Fight to Save Our Republic. He is the former Director of Cybersecurity, Policy Strategy, and International Affairs at the Department of Defense. John is also a Senior Fellow at the Center for Security Policy. He is also the author of the blockbuster new book, The Nation Will Follow, available at thenationwillfollow.com. Colonel, great to speak to you today.
Hey, Brett, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you on your show. Thank you.
Honor's ours. Let's get your takeaway from Biden's State of the Union the other night.
Well, I think the line of the night was actually Benny Johnson's paraphrasing of Biden's reference to, and if you attempt to cut blah, 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 I will veto it. And then the blue automatons all, immediately snapped to attention and started applauding, even though they had no idea what he just said. So I think that pretty much summed up the night.
Yeah, it seemed kind of like he was speed reading it. He was trying to get through it really quickly, and then he would flub words. And then I don't think he was expecting getting heckled at all, like he did from the Republicans. I think that really kind of blindsided him in a lot of ways.
Ever since the Joe Wilson episode, You Lie, Sir, with Obama, we're kind of descending into the British Parliament.
Yes.
I love the energy. Now, some people would say, "Oh, it breaks decorum." Oh, come on, give me a break. I mean, they are so ugly, mean-spirited to anything that is not a part of the blue machine. I mean, the way they treated Trump, the way they treated Bush, and come on, give me a break. So, MTG yells out something. I'm sorry, I'm okay with this, because let's just throw decorum out the window. They are not showing any decorum in any other venue. So for them to be suddenly pious on this topic, I'm sorry, I reject that.
Yeah, it was not a memorable night for Joe Biden. Let's talk balloons, Chinese spy balloons. Do you think that this Chinese surveillance balloon was a quote unquote Sputnik moment, as some have stated?
Yes, it was. I mean, first and foremost, I have to say up front, now I really pivoted from the war on terror to China issues in about 2007. Been working sensitive China issues until I retired in 2018 from the Department of Defense. Also had time at the National Security Council, did shift work in everybody had to do shift work in the National Military Command Center. I never remember anything about Chinese spy balloons. So I'm sorry, I just don't remember. Doesn't mean that it didn't happen and I missed the report, but I don't remember. That being said, I think it was a Sputnik moment in many ways, because we'll never have perfect radar coverage. We'll never have perfect situational awareness. That's the reality in the national security world. There is always, but what you do is, at any level of command, you have to essentially enumerate where you're going to take risk and what are your mitigation procedures. The reality is we have imperfect radar visibility, and also a lot of people don't understand, in the modern national airspace system and the air traffic control system, radar is not the primary means of situational awareness. And oh, by the way, it's the Federal Aviation Administration that runs the radars for everybody's thinking it's Air Force. This is not the 1950s anymore. That was in the late 70s. There was an agreement. FAA would take over operations maintenance of the radar environment for the domestic and the approaches on the international routes. So and what we really use, not to get too wonkish here, is called ADS-B, which is essentially an aircraft squawking all the details of who they are. So the whole presumption of air traffic control in NAS in the modern era is what are called cooperative or compliant aircraft or air vehicles. Okay. Yeah. So this was clearly not cooperative. By the way, nobody was looking at a radar screen. because what they're really looking at is essentially the ADS-B returns,
Right.
not the radar image and picture. And so when I don't think Jake Sullivan was totally descriptive and forthcoming. I think he has been very smarmy and mischievous and dishonest in the past on different topics. On this one, I think he was kind of delving into that territory because when they say, "Oh, it happened during the Trump era," I go, "Oh, really? Where? When? I'd like to know about this." And what I think they really did, they don't want to go into details, is VanHurk, now that he realizes, and he's going to be lucky if he keeps his 4 stars, because I think there needs to be a complete investigation. But now that he realizes his gaps and seams, he tells his staff to go back, and now that they actually review the radar and know what a radar image for a 200-foot balloon with a 5,000-foot package, 5,000-pound package underneath it looks like, they go back through the historical archives and they start saying, "Oh, yes, yeah, we actually missed one here, and we actually missed one there, and we missed one over here too, and oh, by golly, there's one over here too. Oops. Okay, the Chinese got one in on us. Okay, this was an intelligence operation. This was an espionage operation, and they exploited a gap or seam. And now, all fairness, General VanHurk, the NORAD Northcom commander, said at the Aspen conference in June of 22, which is kind of like the American Davos or World WEF gathering, but we don't call it that. That's essentially what it is. And we send lots of U.S. government people to the Aspen event. And in all fairness, VanHurk said his number one concern was lack of domain awareness for his area of responsibilities. This is a 4-star saying, "I can't see my operating environment." That's called a bad thing.
Wow.
That's called a bad thing.
Wow.
And he said also, even more concerning, undersea domain awareness on the approaches. That should be a flaming 4-alarm fire. So we no longer have the undersea visibility. All of the Cold War era SOSA systems, retired, gone, incredibly expensive to maintain, gone, retired for the most part. So we have a 4-star saying, "I can't see where I can't see where I'm operating."
Right. That's terrifying.
Well, this is, and let's be real. I'm not I'm not letting the Biden's team off the hook in any way, shape, or form. Starting with VanHurk, we need to know an exact timeline, who knew what, when, and what was reported. Because again, having done duty at the National Military Command Center, doing at the crisis action teams, nothing gets to that level unless it's new, different, and doesn't fit into any other actioning template. It's so I can't believe, once they did know about it, that the senior watch officer at NORAD Northcom didn't pick up the phone. And these phones, you literally pick them up and it immediately on the other end rings. You don't have to dial in a number. I mean, you got all these kinds of different phones. I don't want to go into any detail, but you pick up the phone, NMCC, this is NORAD Northcom watch floor. We see something we've never seen before. I don't know what it is. We're launching Elmendorf interceptors to visually identify, because we don't even know what it is. I can't believe that didn't happen. And then at the same time, once the NMCC gets a call like that, you spin up an interagency call where you literally on the general officer, flag officer, who's the duty senior in the NMCC, they can literally, him and his 06 or her 06 can punch a button, whoop, all the interagency watch floors immediately are online, and you can share information and start working the situation. And the White House can be in a monitor only situation, or it can, or there may be a need for what's called the designation of a lead federal official. And I've literally been in those situations where there had to be a determination, and the White House designates, and then let's say White House designates Attorney General, you are the lead you are the lead federal official for this event, which a lot of people don't realize. It's actually DOJ who's for domestic events that has the preponderance of responsibilities.
Wow.
And then at that time, DOD, you don't lift a finger at DOD until Attorney General literally turns around and faxes a request. DOD, I need this help from you. And believe me, I've actually worked these, and you don't lift a finger until you get that literally on the wash fax. Boom, Attorney General, DOD, I need your help. Since I'm the lead, I need your help on this. Then you can start initiating the different contingency plans if you have a plan for this scenario. So,
Amazing.
but the reality on domestic air defense is we've not really had domestic air defense since 1979 when we retired the last of the Nike and the Hawk systems in southern Florida and Alaska. Since then, we've had Zippo air defense, other than a few interceptor squadrons, which are mostly in the Guard right now, in the Air Guard. And so, ladies and gentlemen, newsflash, we haven't had air defense of the continental United States other than interceptor squadron since 1979. No, we've been reintroducing missile defense, or I don't know if you want to say introducing missile defense. It's very limited. Yeah, all this being said, we have accepted risk in this area, and the Chinese were studying us enough, and believe me, they study everything we say, do, to an enormous detail, almost a comical level of detail. And they found a gap in seam and they played it.
You know, everyone's talking about how this balloon was set up for surveillance, but could this kind of balloon be used as a delivery platform, like for an EMP or a small nuclear weapon?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even the Chinese themselves, it's funny, we already knew this was already public information, but for whatever reason, the Chinese, after being caught, and believe me, just a quick break, if you want the Chinese to stop doing something, the first thing you do is identify by name and picture of who exactly in China is doing it. And I say that just at the unclassified level. We've done that before. And it's amazing because those persons usually disappear and the problem goes away.
Wow.
The Chinese, for whatever reason, they think they're very clever until they get outed by picture, name, and face. And then those people suddenly are never heard from again. You know, it's hey.
And
hey,
the communists don't have
care.
The communists don't have a history of making people disappear now, do they? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not kidding. This goes back to the Clinton years.
Wow.
There was piracy essentially enabled by the PLAN in the South China Sea. Piracy. We're not talking about island building. We're talking about corrupt piracy. And the Clintons simply released, I'm not going to go into any details how, but they were able to release the names and the pictures of the senior officers who were doing this in the Chinese Navy. And, you know, the problem just went away for some reason. I don't know. So that's what we got to do. So we just got to, we know it came from Hainan Island. That's been announced. Big Island in the south, which is where their secret underground submarine base for their ballistic missile subs is at. But we just released the names and the faces of who did it, and I'm pretty sure the Chinese are going to take care of this situation. We have a strong track record of doing that over the years, and miraculously, the Chinese seem to internally turn around and action it for whatever reason. So it's like, you know, thanks. If they want to eliminate each other, I'm fine with that too. Go for it.
If the administration doesn't do anything in the face of this, do you think it will embolden the CCP to do more, or what can we expect after this balloon incident if Biden does nothing?
Yeah. First and foremost, absolutely, this was a test of resolve because they are all about the psychological analysis of us and our leaders. And so this absolutely was a test of the Biden team, and I think they've failed. I think they're trying to recover. But again, the Chinese found a gap and seam. in all fairness to everybody, I'm not excusing the Biden team. I'm not excusing the military, but this was a risk we've essentially assumed away since 1979, and the Chinese pulled a fast one. But I was in 2012. I was at Google receiving a brief from the Project Loon team. Google had a project to use high altitude balloons for internet connectivity, and using their advanced data analytics to essentially provide a maneuvering capability to the balloons by leveraging the different wind patterns and speeds at different levels. Okay, the DoD spokesperson, Brigadier General Ryder, has made it very clear. He's always used this term maneuver. The balloon has a maneuvering capability. So in 2012, Google was briefing me on this, and I said, "Wow, this is incredible that Google is doing this." But this immediately I recognized that this looks a lot like CIA's project Skyhook. There's two Skyhooks. I'm talking about the balloon Skyhook, not the Fulton Recovery System Skyhook. But it was known as Ashcan and several others because there were several balloon programs. And I said, this looks an awful lot like what the CIA was doing in the 50s and 60s over Russia and China. They said, oh yeah, it's exactly what they were doing, because we FOIA'd, we sent a Freedom of Information Act request to CIA, and they gave us all the program plans. And I said, wow, okay, so that's very interesting. So now my question is, and curiosity is, did the Chinese either rip off Google? Did Google share? Did they rip off Google, who was borrowing from what the CIA was doing in the 50s and 60s? That's my curiosity.
Wow, that's wild, man. It's funny. It's like, when I think about it, I can see Google sharing that with them, but at the same time, I can also see, the CCP basically reverse engineering or just stealing patents like they normally do.
They're blowing through for what Google is not sharing, which I do not trust Google on this topic at all, because they have been known to share, and I've literally been in high level dialogues from the U.S. government to Google, where Google and others will say, "Oh, that's Google China Incorporated. We're Google U.S. Incorporated. We have nothing to do with each other." It's like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah, I don't buy that. Yeah. Legally, they may be correct, but I do not accept that there is no information sharing, financial sharing, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, did China essentially do a replay of Google, which was doing a replay of what the CIA was doing?
It's wild. Do you think Joe Biden is compromised when it comes to the CCP? And if so, what does that mean for America for the duration of his term as president?
I've always been very careful and conservative about making those claims. But I think at this point in time, with now that big social media, big legacy media is now acknowledging the existence and actually the accuracy of the Hunter situation, Hunter laptop. I don't buy this various descriptions from the father that, oh, I didn't talk about any business with my son. I don't buy that for a nanosecond. And just point to Schweitzer's book, I think is the best documentation of everything. Hunter is clearly bought off. And in that book, he clearly documents how intimately Joe Biden was. And remember, it was Joe Biden's trips in 2014 that Schweitzer documents that coincidentally was the same year the Chinese began aggressively island building in the South China Seas. There are no coincidences. There are no conspiracies, but there's no coincidences either. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, Peter calls it. He's a good friend of mine, and Red Handed is the book that you're talking about, and he calls it elite capture, and those are the words of the CCP. They call it elite capture.
We have a president that I think is a national security risk at this point in time. To dismiss that entirely and not even consider that possibility, I think is reckless and irresponsible. And it is incredibly clear between some of the other members of Congress, Swalwell, Ted Lieu,
Yeah.
Judy Chu. Come on, let's get real here. Members appointed and confirmed members of the administration and their known members, Liberation Road, the Chinese Communist Party, the Communist Party movement in America. Come on, this is to dismiss that and ho hum that, as most of legacy media has done, is frankly dangerous and irresponsible, and clearly they don't care. I think more and more of them are coming around, but the damage is done. We have somebody who is, and I think with the UPenn Biden Center, I think this is a screaming. The FBI should be spending far more energy on this than flying surveillance aircraft over school board meetings in Loudoun County right next door.
Yeah.
And remember, they dissolved essentially the China task force inside the FBI. Now, there has been a number of indictments against there has been some good work in the FBI, but they need to triple and quadruple their indictments. And remember, for the FBI line worker, FBI agent, it's all about in your annual performance evaluation, how many indictments did you get? So let's ramp it up, and so they can get a $3,000 bonus a year instead of $1,500 a bonus a year. So as civil servants. So I mean, it's number of indictments, and they need to ramp it up. It's the UPenn thing I've looked into in actually fair amount of detail. The UPenn Biden Center have asked for the Form 990 from University of Pennsylvania, which is an enormous nonprofit. No reference to the UPenn Biden Center in the section where it says please list associated nonprofits. No listing. I've called multiple times. I've emailed multiple times to talk with one of their general counsels about please explain the relationship of UPenn Biden to UPenn. No response on that. They did provide the 990, thank you, but they have not provided any details. I've gone through the IRS databases. There is no listing of something called UPenn Biden. There are 3 Biden nonprofits. None of them are UPenn Biden. We have a national security situation because of all the Chinese donations to UPenn, this mysterious UPenn Biden Center, classified documents that he's leaving like Johnny Appleseed all over the national capital region.
I know.
That was great. That was Greg Gutfeld's original line. I can't steal that from Greg. So
it's a great line. It's a great line. Let's talk the classified document scandal. I can't figure this one out. And our mutual friend Chris Barron and I, we've talked about this, and I can't figure it out if this is orchestrated by the Dems to get rid of him in 24. But at the same time, I can see it being something like where Biden and his team are doing a little CYA in relation to the Trump scandal and the Mar-a-Lago. And then at the same time, I think to myself, but this could also be just a shiny bouncy ball, some kind of a distraction for all of us while they're doing something else over here. What do you make of all this stuff?
Well, I mean, the big picture, this is weaponization of government, of the deep state against anybody who questions them. Their number one target has been the American people. Donald J. Trump just happens to be in between them and the American people. This shameful weaponization of presidents there is no higher level of classification authority than a president. Even by verbal order, a president can declassify. That is total horse dump. Anybody who says he can't classify that, he can do whatever he wants to with a classified document. A president can do that. I'm sorry. There is no higher classification authority than the president, period. Mm-hmm. So they were weaponizing, and this mysterious figure called the Archivist of the United States, who suddenly appears out of nowhere when Donald J. Trump is out of office, accusing him of having classified documents, which, oh, by the way, most of the presidential libraries, if not all of them, from presidents post World War II, guess what? Actually have classified and including top secret documents at their libraries. They just have to store them properly in accordance with top secret storage procedures. So this is all a lie, a hogwash, and now Biden has them at multiple locations from the time he was senator and vice president. Vice president cannot declassify documents.
Right.
And we now have man from GLAAD, Pence, also walking around with classified documents. So I guess it's just, ever since Sandy Bergler took him, walked out with documents in his socks, which he has his clearance back to the best of my knowledge. So this is weaponization against the people. Donald J. Trump is in between the deep state and the people.
Where do you see this Biden classified doc scandal going?
Well, I think it is so many issues have piled up. Him potentially being bought off, which I think there's strong indicators that he's bought off by China. Yeah. He's a controlled opposition, captured elite. I think between that, his son, between the balloon situation, between the document scandal, between the total collapse of any form of border integrity, whether it be the southern border or the air approaches, I think we are looking at impeachment in the near term. We just got to get the House side has to get ramping up.
Yeah.
And they got to start referring things to DOJ. Everybody says, well, if they impeach anybody, the Senate's not going to do anything about it. So what? Do it anyway. If they make a referral to Department of Justice, Department of Justice not going to do anything. That doesn't matter. Refer it anyway. Refer for criminal prosecution. That's the process. If DOJ sits on it, that's Merrick Garland's problem.
Right.
So make the referral for criminal prosecution, and they gotta ramp it up and increase the velocity. But I think the simple answer with this whole episode is impeachment. I mean, this is a disaster. Everything he touches is a disaster.
Well, and you just outlined actual impeachable offenses. Something of which we're not used to in recent memory. Biden just had this really bizarre interview with Judy Woodruff on PBS where he blames staffers for packing up his office wrong, and then went on to say on the topic of the classified documents, "They've informed me not to speak to this issue," and that's a quote. When I first heard this, I just thought to myself, "Wow, did Joe Biden just plead the fifth to this whole investigation, basically?"
Yeah, he has enough cognizance and mental faculties to understand he's in a precarious position.
Yeah.
But the elite, which I always equate to 16% of the population based on a Rasmussen poll from August of last year, 84% of us believe there is a deep state or the possibility of a deep state. This 16% have been able to assert tyranny over everybody else and, ignore the obvious. Mm-hmm. But the Republicans have the House. Start doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you've got a new book out. It's titled The Nation Will Follow. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, thank you, Brett. So The Nation Will Follow is about my experiences in government, almost 40 years of national security service in various capacities, realizing there is a deep state. I was in it. I didn't even realize there was a deep state. Myself realizing I was in the middle of colleagues spying on candidate and then President Trump and instituting a full-blown coup against him, getting that information, fighting to get that information in front of the Durham investigation, and then we are in the middle of a coup and a color revolution and fighting for our republic. And part of the findings of this preface is written by Stephen K. Bannon. Mm-hmm. part of the outcome of this is I've analyzed the situation. I've had to analyze hundreds of complex situations and boil it down into one page action memo of recommendations. But the whole thing is the deep staters stole this country because we forgot about the county. And we forgot the relevance of the county. The whole constitutional republic is based upon voting and governance at the county level. If the county is dirty, if the county vote is dirty, it isn't going to get cleaner as it goes up the chain, as we learned in 2020. The entire nation is now wrapped around the finger of Maricopa, Fulton, and I was going to say there's 3,300 counties, county equivalents. I was going to say Philadelphia, but now, since the Republicans have lost the legislature or the House side in Pennsylvania, it's the entire state of Pennsylvania now. They are locking down, they are putting in insurance policy after insurance policy to make sure Donald J. Trump doesn't come back and that they maintain power in 2024. This is, ladies and gentlemen, it's we forgot about everything. It's at the county. We have to retake our counties to retake the nation. So that's what the book is about.
You talk about in the book a blueprint to defeat the deep state. Give us an overview of what that looks like.
All of our 3,300 county and county equivalents have 7 common centers of gravity that are the foundation for governance for the entire nation. All 33 of these 3,300 have what are called have registrars. They might be called in Arizona, they're called recorders. Mm-hmm. They have an election board. They have a county council. They have a school board. They have judges. They have prosecutors, and they have the all-important sheriff. 7 common centers of gravity. So I exhort all citizens to get involved in at least one of these 7. Everybody says, where do I start? One of these? I say, well, figure out which one of these 7 you are most passionate about, right, and start attending and start getting involved and start getting educated. And the most common thing, and I've coached and mentored hundreds of counties across the nation. And the first thing they always say, oh, I need a lawyer. I can't do this without a lawyer. I said, that is about the worst thing you can do. We only have honest lawyers on our side of the ledger, and any one of them will tell you that you'll die or go broke. You'll die of old age or go broke waiting for them to do the nug work of just reading the law. So I say one of the things, American citizen, if you can read English, you can read your state law. In Virginia, the election code is 24.2. Read it, because a lot of these self-professed experts, and oftentimes these are being judges and prosecutors, and they don't, guess what? A lot of this, especially election law, very little election law has been really actually addressed. So a lot of these experts really aren't experts, and they're blowing hot air. And even if they're honest, even if they're clean, you'll keep just by showing up with I just was asked to speak at the state senate in Richmond just a few days ago, and said my piece. So a good friend of mine, State Senator Amanda Chase, asked me to speak. Say these things, get in front of your county, get in front of your state, and say things. And if have shown you can establish authority and speak with gravitas, they will pay attention and listen. Mm-hmm. And even if they're clean, they will pay attention, because they'll say, oh, somebody's actually reading. Guess what? We haven't had to read because nobody's asked any questions about this. Nobody even shows up to these meetings.
That's usually the case. That's usually the case. Nobody shows up. Yeah. We were talking about this off air. I mean, it's up until 2020 and COVID really, which I think accelerated so much stuff culturally. None of us really even had things like school board on the radar, unfortunately.
You would ask me 5 years ago, go to a school board. I said, wow, all our kids are homeschooled or go to a Christian school. Why would I do? I said, attend a school, doesn't matter. Attend a school board meeting, attend a county council meeting, because they took over this country. The deep staters, and there is a deep state, they live and stand upon the shoulders of the deep staters at the county level. And the deep staters, there was a strong prevalence with the blue side, but there's a lot of uniparty Republicans that are part of this too, like the Maricopa
Mhm.
County Board, which is Republican, but has done nothing but enable election malfeasance. Um, but you get involved, show up, ask questions, and hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. I have a good friend who's a mayor in New Jersey. I'm not going to say where, and he's had a lot of disruptive BLM types show up at his town council meetings. Well, I called in one time and was given the mic, and I really let it rip. And frankly, they never came back after that because they never had been taking a punch to the face like that. I'm not going to put up with any of this silliness here. This is
Yeah.
all this Black Lives Matter, critical race theory. All this is a communist revolution that teaches people to hate each other and hate their country. This is nothing good will come out of this. This is not reconciliation. This is hateful retribution. What we're dealing with. So
Mhm.
citizens, but get involved at your county. Figure out. Yeah.
Where can viewers order your book?
Oh, thank you, Brett.
Mhm.
thenationwillfollow.com, thenationwillfollow.com.
Mhm.
And I got some great vignettes of how I realized there was a deep state. I was on the A ring in 2016, right before um, the primary for the Republicans, and I ran into a former Bush appointee, a senior Bush appointee, a good friend, mentor, and I said, "Hey, you're going to support Trump at the convention," and he said, "This immediately changed everything." He said, "No, we see more opportunities with her." And I'm going, "Who is we, and what
Wow.
opportunities did you see?" And I said, "That is insanity." Right there, I knew my whole life, my whole career flashed in front of me in a second. And I said, there is Donald J. Trump is right. We have a deep state. We have a swamp. And it goes on to a number of other episodes where in London, 30 days before the election, I run across a former very senior FBI official, retired, who was in London coincidentally. The only thing I was able to engage with him, and a lot more that went on, but the only reason he was in London was a personal request to Jim Comey to coordinate the story with Gina Haspel, CIA chief of station. And then after the election, I was called on the top secret phone and said, "John, you've got to be part of our interagency group. We're going to finalize the Russia story to delay or block Donald J. Trump's inauguration in January 2017." And I said, this is insanity. And so a lot more went on, but and I realized there is a deep state, and Americans need to take back our country.
These unelected bureaucrats are terrifying, and I don't really know what you do about them. They're almost impossible to fire. I mean, I've heard it takes upwards of 2 years just to terminate a federal employee. Even if Trump wins in 2024, I'm not really sure what. I mean, I guess you can starve these agencies of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of what I was thinking about the other day. Was we basically shut down the Vietnam War by starving it of funding. Congress did.
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't Republican Congress and Republican Senate and Republican President starve federal agencies of money in order to thin the herd?
Yeah, Brett, that's actually an excellent point. Rush Limbaugh, even Reagan would
Hmm.
say this: starve. You, it's hard to totally kill off a government agency, but one of the good strategies is starve the old, create a new agency to totally, excuse that expression, reset things,
Hmm.
get a new agency and starve the old one so that the old one just withers away. And there's a lot of deep logic and strategy behind that. So yes, starving the old one, you got to create a new one. And that's where I've
Okay.
had several Epic Times articles where I've outlined creation of a new CIA and a new FBI, and starving the old ones into non-existence.
Last question, and this was not on my list, but what do you make of this new report that's come out over the last 24 hours that alleges that the U.S. was behind the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipeline?
Well, very simply put, just like I don't mean to get detailed, and these are not classified things I'm bringing up. These are actually a part of law and process in the intel community.
Okay.
It's called the Five Eyes End Around method. And here's same too. So, and this is where immediately when this explosion happened, everybody was, a number of people were saying it was either Russia or it was America. And I said, no, I don't think it was actually either. I think it was, this smells and looks an awful lot like an SBS operation, which is the UK, that's their SEALs.
Right.
And I said, and here's the clever, because if you do something this as an American, you have to run in the White House what's called a covert findings package. So very important. It's not well understood, even among those who say they're lawyers in intelligence law, and most people, again, like the local, they have no idea what they're talking about. And so a covert findings is essentially where a president certifies, we're going to have to do something extraordinary. There's no way around it. Okay, now remember, 82, what did Reagan do? Reagan approved the sabotage. I mean, it's not fully, but it's pretty clear. Reagan approved the sabotage of a massive pipeline inside of Russia, devastated the Russian economy. Was that the right thing to do? Yeah, absolutely. Soviets, bad people.
Yes.
When he came in, he said, boys, here's the mission. We're going to put the Russians out of business. And yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. We made it happen. Okay. Bad people, evil people, communists deserve what they get. So in this situation, did this rise? So I think I'm just thinking about processes that what happened was there was an agreement between the US and the UK. SBS would be in the lead. We'd provide 95% of the support because SAS and SBS are darn good, but they just don't have a lot of footprint and capability.
They don't have what we have. Yeah, exactly.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
They're incredible people. But by doing that and having an agreement that SBS is in the lead, we don't have to do a covert findings package. And if you don't do a covert findings package, you don't have to inform the Gang of Eight. And in the end, only a very small number of people know, and Congress isn't informed. Congress doesn't even know about this, and only a small number of people in the administration. It's a beautiful thing. We're just going to, hey, and somebody says, hey, where's the covert findings? Say, we're not the lead on this. You go ask the Prime Minister.
That's a sweet little workaround, frankly, if that's the way it went. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of, in my mind, I started going through, this kind of sounds familiar, okay? So, yeah, it's because everybody's got, it's Russia, it's American. I said, no, I don't think it's either. Because the SBS, they're darn good, and just like the SBS have clearly been coaching and mentoring the Ukrainians, the incredible attacks they've done with simplistic drones and subsurface drones, and essentially shut down the Sevastopol naval facilities and just shellacked the Russians. The Ukrainians didn't do that out of thin air. Believe me, SBS was there on their surfboards right next to the Ukrainians, and we probably provided some secret sauce too. But again, it's like, not our operation. Go talk to the Prime Minister.
It's fine with me as long as there's not American boots on the ground there. It's no problems here. Hey, sadly, we're out of time. Colonel Mills, give everyone your social media coordinates as well as where they can find your work and what you're up to.
Thank you, Brad. TheNationWillFollow.com. TheNationWillFollow.com is the book. And then it's Colonel Rhett John on Getter and Truth. I'm also, you'll see me at the Epic Times where I write regularly for the Epic Times op-ed pieces.
Awesome. We'll link to all that stuff. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back.
Oh, looking forward to it, Brett. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks again.